and screen is sharing. Oh, okay. So I already send you guys, right? So this is the complete course content, which I divided as a concept wise. So concept wise, those are going to be the content. And if you come for the chapter wise, if you observed in already in that YouTube, I already said no, as a chapter wise, I classified the entire VAS administration as a 10 chapters. So these concepts, whatever I'm showing you now, just the headlines, right? Those content are going to be covered in those 10 chapters. And moreover, this course content, whatever there, suppose if you take in the first one, middleware overview and middleware component introduction, if you see there, the load balancer, web server, application server, directory server, access management, integration tools, and monitoring and tuning tools. So this set, and you will get a clear explanation each and everything with the definitions. Okay, that's I'm preparing now. It's almost all I prepared it a long back. Okay, so I think you are able to see here. You are able to see here, right? A complete course, everything the documented here. Okay, everything is documented, but I will take a week time, to make it more effective and more effective with compare of now. Okay, that's one thing I want to tell you. Okay, so now coming to the chapters point of view. So as we discuss the entire VAS, we divided as a 10 chapters. First chapter is architecture, and second chapter is topology and terminology, and third chapter is installation, and fourth chapter is system management. These four chapters need a continuous rapport, which is the fourth chapter is very, very, very precious, which we are going to discuss more about the configuration files and how the files are going to be interact and where you can find out if any troubleshoot point of view means you should have more knowledge on this configuration files point of view. Okay, so fourth chapter is very, very important. In these four chapters is going to be one set which need a continuous rapport. Then remaining six chapters is another set. In that six chapters, security, clustering, performance, SIB, troubleshoot, and class loaders. In that six chapters set, the very, very precious one is clustering and security, and SIB also. Those three are going to be practical. Remaining three, performance and troubleshoot and class loader, are going to be theoretical. Coming this first part, which I'm saying, architecture, topology and terminology, and installation and system management. First two are theoretical discussion. Architecture and almost all topology and terminology also a theoretical discussion. Practical point of view, installation and system management, and very, very, very precious thing of VAS. So today I am going to start this architecture, which is going to be pure theoretical discussion. And while we are discussing, while I'm explaining this theoretical discussion, if anybody got any doubt regarding this one, please unmute it and raise a question. Okay, I will give the clarity itself. I already shared this VAS printables. In that 1.1.1 is the architecture PDF, which I am opening now. Okay, so this is the one. So here in this Websphere application server v6 is means version 6. There is no difference between 1 second, please hold on. Okay, so now I'm going to start this IBM Websphere application server v6 means it's version 6. So just whether it is a v6 or v7 or v8 v9, whatever the versions, the architecture is same. Okay, so when we are going to discuss about this first chapter architecture, in this the main important one is this is the diagram. This is the main diagram. Hope everybody able to see, right? So if you want, you can open that from your which I already shared in the mail. You can open that PDF also. You can check it out there. So here, this is the main diagram of architecture. If you observe this diagram, the blue color which you are seeing is an application. So first of all, let me tell you what we are going to discuss on this architecture chapter. Okay. So once this architecture is done, once this architecture chapter is done, you are going to be perfect with the concepts which I am going to discuss now. So you will be perfect. You will be perfect with what are the major components of application server. So that is what you are going to administrate, right? So what you are going to be application server administrator. So in this architecture, we are going to discuss what are the major components, what is going to contain, what are the major components of this application server. Then in that application server, we are going to deploy the application, right? Which is a JTE application, which the extension will be with EAR, Enterprise RQ file, or WAR, Web RQ file, or RAR, Resource Adapter RQ file. So those application in this architecture chapter, we are going to see what are the major components of that application. We will see what are the major components of application server. Then we will see what are the major components of application. Once this application is deployed into this application server, what are the different type of user clients we have, which is going to use that application which is deployed in the application server. So we have four different types of user clients. One is browser based user client, another one is JTE client, another one is messaging client, another one is web services client. So we will see individually each and every user client, and we will see what are the protocols they are using, which user client is using which protocol. And in this architecture, we are going to see what is a web server, and we will see what is the difference between application server and web server, and we will come to know how this application server and web server is going to interact with each and everyone, with each other, how it's going to be interact. And we'll come to know how this application server is going to interact with the database and what are the different types of databases we have in the market. And overall picture of this one is, if it is entire one is a Websphere, if you want to administrate this Websphere application server, you need administrative clients. So we have three different types of administrative clients. What are they? We'll see clearly on this architecture. So this is what you are going to be clear. Once this architecture chapter is done, you will be clear what are the major components of application server, and then you will be clear what are the major components of application, and you will see what are the different user clients we have, which is going to interact with the application which is already deployed in the application server, and what are the different types of databases we have and how this application server is going to interact with that, and what are the different types of administrative clients we have to administrate this application server. And we'll see what are the different protocols those user clients are using, and individual request flow from one user client to how the request flow will happen from each and every user client to application server. Those we are going to see it right now. Okay.
No, sir. Please go ahead.
No.
Yeah, fine, thanks. So yeah, I'm getting into major components of now I'm getting into major components of application, not application server. First let us see what are the major components of application. Well, so as a VAS administrator, it's very clear. As a VAS administrator, what is your task? One word, if you want to say in one word, what is your roles and responsibilities? In one word, if you want to say, the one word answer for as a VAS administrator is, you are going to administrate a JTE application. You are going to administrate a JTE application, Java to Enterprise Edition Language Developed Application. You are going to take that from the developers and you are going to do the administration. Now we are going to see what are the major components of that JTE application. What are the major components of that JTE application? Okay. So see, remember the application, whatever the application developing by the developers, they will club all their developed programs and they will make it as a one single file and they will hand over it to you. Once it is hand over it to you, and you will take that application, that file which you got from the developers, and you are going to deploy it into your production and as well as non-production servers. That is the first step as a VAS administrator, deploying the
So
enterprise
one second.
application. Yeah.
Yeah, that file is nothing but .ear file.
Yes. So JTE application. Okay, the application, the name may be anything depending upon the usage of the application, right? Suppose let us think that the client is ICICI Bank, which we discussed yesterday, right? So ICICI Bank is the client, and the develop ICICI Bank decided to develop one application. The application purpose is they want to transfer money from one account to another account. Online transaction is the application purpose. So what developers will do? They develop one JT application. The application name is online transaction. Okay. To finish that application task, they start coding and they develop. Suppose imagine that they developed with 100 programs. So 100 programs they develop. Once their developing of that 100 programs is done, what they will do before giving to you, they will club all those 100 programs and they will make it as a single file. They will make it as a single file. Generally, the single file will be as with the extension .ear. .ear. EAR is nothing but enterprise archive file. Okay, enterprise archive file. That means online transaction.er file. They prepared 100 programs for the online transaction application, and they clubbed all these 100 programs and they made it as a online transaction.er file, and they are supposed to give it to you, and you will take that online transaction.er file and you are going to deploy is nothing but putting, you are going to deploy it into your server, which is nothing but application server. So now what we are going to see is what are the major components of that ER file. They made the 100 programs club and they made as a single file, right? So now we are going to see what are the major components in that ER file. Remember the maximum major components of that ER file, the maximum possibility is 4 modules. We can say it as a 4 modules. Okay, 3 modules is web module, EAP module, and resource adapter module. These 3 modules, they will club it as a ER file. Okay, so you got online transaction.er file from the developer, right? So what are the maximum possibility inside of that ER file? There is a maximum possibility of 3 modules. What is that? Online transaction.var, which is nothing but web module, online transaction dot jar, which is nothing but EJB module, online transaction dot rar, which is nothing but resource adapter module. Only these 3 is the possibility to have into the ER file. There is a one more module with the ER file. The module name is application client module. Okay, and remember, this application client module is not going to be the part of ER file, but this application client module is going to install at the, see in the down, if you see, run in the application client container. So this application client module is going to install in the client container. That means this application client module is nothing but if you come for the main diagram, is nothing but this JTU client, the user client, the JTU client. I will explain you later, but it is a JTU client. Got the point, right? So now come again to here. So now see the JTE application. The Java to Enterprise Edition developed application is a combination of max 4 modules. In that also only 3 modules will be possible. We have the possibility of only 3 modules in the ER file. The fourth module, which is application client module, which will be installed at the client container, which will be act as a JTE client to interact directly with the application which is deployed in the application server. That is one story. And now coming to these 3 modules. So in this JTE application, I said online transaction.er file, right? This application is developed with 100 programs. That's what we discussed, right? In these 100 programs, suppose 40 programs they develop with by using EJBs. Sorry, they develop by using servlets, JSPs, and HTML and GIFs and all those things. So they the entire online transaction.er file is a combination of 100 programs for sure. But in that, 40 programs are purely developed by using servlets, JSPs, and HTML and GIFs. What they will do, they will club all these 40 programs, which is developed with servlets, JSPs, HTML, and GIFs, and they will make it as a web module. They will make it as a web module. So its extension is WAR, web archive file, which is going to be contained in that web module WAR file only the programs which is developed with servlets and which is developed with JSPs and HTML and GIFs. Those will be clubbed as a web module and they'll give it as a online transaction.war file. And inside that there will be one XML file. The XML file name is deployment descriptor. So now my question is, what is deployment descriptor? And answer for the deployment descriptor is very, very important. Deployment descriptor is an XML file. It is an XML file which is going to contain the complete information of deployment descriptor. The definition is deployment descriptor is nothing but an XML file which is going to contain the complete information of that module and how that module has to be deployed to the application server. That information will be there in the deployment descriptor. So in that 100 programs, 40 programs are developed by using servlets, JSPs, HTML and GIFs. So what the developer did, he combined the all 40 programs and he made it as a online transaction.war file. And in that online transaction.war file, he put one deployment descriptor. The deployment descriptor name of web module war file is web.xml. Web.xml. So what will be there in that web.xml? The complete information of its module. That means web module. And how that web module has to be deployed into the application server. That information will be there in the deployment descriptor. That's why deployment descriptor is very, very important for each and every module, because every module is going to have its own deployment descriptor. And what will be there in the deployment descriptor? It contains the complete information of the module and how it has to be deployed to the application server. Clear? So one module concept is done. What is that? Web module, and its extension is .var, and all the programs and all the content of web module.var will contain servlet, JSPs and HTML and GIFs. Done. Now come to the second part. If the application 40 programs are developed with those, right, and we clubbed it and we made it as a var file, and remaining in 60, 40 programs are developed with EJBs, Enterprise Java Beans, then what they will do, they will club all these 40 programs which is developed with Enterprise Java Beans, EJBs, and they will make it as a Enterprise Java Beans EJB module. They will make it as a EJB module, another module. That means online transaction dot jar, JR. Its EJB module extension is JR, jar, Java RQ file. Okay, so they will club all these 40 programs which is developed with EJBs and they will make it as a jar file, online transaction.jar file, which is going to be contain only EJB developed applications. And inside that also there will be one more deployment descriptor will be there, right? What is the deployment descriptor of EJB module? EJB-jar.xml. Okay, and what will be there in that EJB-jar.xml? The complete information of its module. That means EJB module and how that EJB module has to be deployed to the application server. That will be there. Now 40 programs are developed with servlets, JSPs, HTML, GIFs. They clubbed it and they made it as a online transaction.war file, which is a web module. And next 40 programs they developed with Enterprise Java Beans. They clubbed it and they made it as a online transaction.jar, which is nothing but EJB module. And remaining 20 programs they developed with RA classes, resource adapter classes. Then they will club this 20 and they will make it as a resource adapter module, and its extension is RAR, resource adapter RQ file, RAR. So the ER file is a combination of three modules: web module, EJB module, resource adapter module. Web module extension is var, resource adapter module extension is rar, EJB module extension is jar. So online transaction.er file is equal to online transaction.var plus online transaction.jar plus online transaction.rar. You got the point, right? It's a combination of these three modules. Is it compulsory every ER file should have these three? No, but for sure at least two will be there. Remember, this is a very, very logical one. At least two will be there. If it is two, then only it will be ER. If it is not combination of any two, then it will be individually .var file, .rar file, not jar file. If you combine any of two, then it will become a dot EAR file, enterprise RQ file. If there is no any of two modules, then definitely it's going to be individual modules, maybe var file, rar file, jar file. But if you combine any of two, then it will become a ER file. Yep, I am done with the components of JT application. Okay, fine. So anybody has any doubt regarding the components of JT application, please?
Sir, so basically when user request for the JSP or servlet, then no need to connect to the database. Application itself can give the static content, right? Okay, okay. Only in the case of EJB request, the application will connect to the database and it
The
will take the
database,
content
yes,
and it
exactly,
will.
exactly. Because it is
Okay,
a
okay.
static, right? It is, sorry, it's a dynamic. Yeah.
Dynamic. Okay, okay. Got it.
Yes, yes. Fine, Akash.
And
Anybody?
sir, one more
Yeah,
question. Yeah, one like so this GSP and servlet run by which I mean web container only, right? This
exactly.
way
In the
JSP.
in web container also, to take every request, first there will be a internally one web server, which is going to call embedded HTTP server, which will act as a internal web server of a application server. Okay, that I will explain it later. Okay, but the thing is, yeah, servlets and JSPs and HTML gives all this web module will be deployed into the web container only. That we'll come to know that when we are supposed to start with the components of application server. Okay, yeah.
Okay, and one question like is the JSP and servlet code also embedded in HTML itself, or there is a separate files JSP or servlet? So
See, all those three are separate files for sure. And one more thing, Akash, here what will be there is your part. Okay, how they linked with servlets, JSPs and HTML, how they manage is not your part. That part is going to purely belongs to the developer side.
okay.
Okay, and knowing of that is fine, but no need of that much in depth how those are interlinked, how HTML is going to mapped with servlets and JSPs. Those are not needed. So servlets, JSPs, HTML and gifts, all those are going to be developed. All will they will club and they will make it as a .var file, which is a web module, and which is going to have the deployment descriptor of web.xml, which is going to contain the complete information of its module. Okay,
Okay, yeah, got it.
Prasad, I have one doubt.
please.
Yeah, it is regarding architecture. Can you please go to that diagram? Okay, so here, like, apart from web browser, the remaining clients are there, like J2E or messaging clients. Those are
Yes,
using a different protocol than
and one
HTTP.
more is there. One more is there. That is web services in the fourth one. Okay,
Yes,
totally
yes. Then apart
application.
from Yeah. Apart from that too, the remaining two are using RMS and JMS protocols, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So in this case, the web server can communicate only using HTTP protocol. So if the
Exactly.
request is from J2E or messaging client, then web server doesn't come into picture.
Then that this part you will come to know when I'm going to discuss about components of application server. See, in that what will happen, see, to access that application which is deployed in the application server, we have four different types of user clients. But in that, only one user client, which is a browser base, which is using HTTP or HTTPS, that only will go through web server. Okay, and moreover, 95% will be happen through browser based user client. Okay, but
Okay.
remaining three user clients is there, no, J2 client, messaging client and web services client. These three clients is going to interact directly with the application server without any interacting with the web server, and they will hit, there will be two containers, web container and EJB container, no? They will hit the EJB container, not only EJB
Okay, so web
container.
container will not be in the picture then.
Exactly, web container will be in picture only for web browser and which is coming through the web
So
services. Okay, and one more
okay,
thing,
so
yeah,
yes, yes, go ahead.
see, one more thing, if it is a JTA client, it's going to interact directly with the EJB container. If it is a messaging client, there will be a messaging engine inside the application server. If it is a web services client, there will be a web services engine inside the application server.
Okay.
You see
Uh,
here, here 4 points you have to remember. Okay, the first point is, if the user client is a browser based user client, the request will be through web server and it will be hit the component of a web container. It will hit the component of a web container in the application server. Now, the second point is, if the user client is a JTU client, it will hit directly the EJB container. Okay. If the user client is a
okay.
messaging client, it will hit directly the messaging engine. Okay. If the user client is
Okay.
a web services, it will hit the messaging engine. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So, does that mean that the EAR file, which will be like application, which will be for J2E or that client,
Hmm.
will it be not having the WAR modules or like that?
No. See, the ER file which is already deployed into the application server, it has the complete. It's a combination of var and rar, right? Rar or jar, right? So when you
Okay.
mapped with web server, the web server is going to use that web module which is there in that ER file, and it's going to service
Okay.
the.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
It's going
I
to.
got it. Yeah.
Yeah. But remaining JTU client and messaging client and web services client is not needed with the web container, right? Web module. They are going to interact with the EJB container. You got the point, right?
Yes. 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 Yes.
Okay.
I got it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
Thank you.
Fine. Okay. So anybody else, or let me go ahead now. Let me see major components of application server. This is the thing. See, this is the major components of application server. What are they? The major components of application. We see the application, that part is done. Now application server, which you are going to administrate, right? The major components of application server is, the first major component is web container, and the second one is, the major one is EJB container, and third one is messaging engine, and fourth one is web services engine. We have four major containers for four different types of user clients. If the user client is a browser based user client, what is the major component of application server? Web container. If the user client is JTE client, what is the major component of application server? EJB container. If the user client is a messaging client, which is a major component of application server? Messaging engine. If the user client is a web services client, and web services engine is going to be work. And apart from these four, and we have five more, which is going to be major components: JMX, transaction, security, WLM by HA means clustering, workload management and high availability, and naming, which we will see in the class loaders point of view. This all five is will be covered as a chapter point of view, and four more containers will be the responsible for user clients, which is going to be the user clients. Okay, so this 10 is going to be the major components of a application server. Now in this application server, we are going to deploy the application, right? So what are the major components of application? The ER file is major components is going to be web module, EJB module, and resource adapter module. Forget about the resource adapter module. Very rarely you will see resource adapter module, but generally in ER file you will see two modules. What is that? Web module and EJB module. Okay, web module and EJB module. When you are going to deploy that application, deploying nothing but putting, right? When you are going to deploy that application into this application server, the web module will come and sit into web container. Web module will come into sit into the web container. EJB module will come into sit into EJB container. So web module will come and sit into web container. EJB module will come and sit into EJB container. So in the web container, remember, there will be an embedded HTTP server. There will be internally one in web container. There will be one embedded HTTP server, which will be act as a internal web server in the application server. Fine. So what are the major components of application server? The web container, EJB container and messaging engine and web services engine and JMX and transaction security, WLMHA and naming. Those are going to be the chapter point of it will cover, and those 4 containers will be responsible for 4 different types of user clients. Now this part is done. Let us see the individual request flow from each and every user client. And now, anybody have any doubts regarding this components of application server?
Sir, as you told, like if request come from the browser, so it will go to the web container. So it might
Yes.
be the possibility, right? If a browser will request for the dynamic content also,
Yes.
so it will
That's
go
what
to
I'm
the EJB.
that's I'm going to show you right now, Akash. Next part
Okay,
is that one only.
okay,
How the request flow will be
okay.
from each and every user client. How the request will go. That's what I'm going to show it in now. Okay. So this part is clear, right? Application server components point of view.
Yes, yes, clear.
Yeah. Then now I'm getting into your point now. Your point is now how the request flow will happen from each and every user client. That's what we are going to see it now. It's a very simple one, which we are going to see it now. See, if the user client is browser based, which is at 95%, the users are going to be used by using the browser only, right? They are going to use only by using browser. See now, if the user client is a browser based, the request will hit. I'm not talking about external web server. Let us think about the request is coming from the external web server itself. That means from the plugin. That part we'll discuss later. But how the request flow will be happen, let us see. So the request will hit directly where? If it is from HTTP from the browser, the request will hit directly web container. It will hit directly web container. In the web container, I said no, there will be one more internal web server, which is embedded HTTP server, which is going to receive that request. And if the request need a dynamic information, then it will hit the EJB container, which is having the sessions and entities. Suppose if it's need to interact with the database, if it's need to interact with the database in the EJB container point of when it's come for, there will be a scope of the resource. That means this application server is going to interact with the database only if you create a resource, which is nothing but the resource name is JDBC, Java Database Connection, which will be established connection between this application server and database. So that resource, it will check in the resource.xml file, and then it will interact with the database also. So the thing is very clear. If the request flow is from the browser based user client, that will hit directly the web container. In the web container, it will contain the embedded HTTP server, which is the internal web server, which will be interact with, if it's need, it will interact with the EJB container, and as well as it will interact with database also if it's needed. Okay, this part is done. And next, let us move for the next part. If the request flow is G2E client. Before moving that, anybody has any doubts regarding the this part, this user client? The request flow is clear, right?
Sir, I have one doubt.
Okay. Yes, Ravi.
Yeah. So if it's a web browser, so the request will directly hit to the web server. Web
No, web
server.
container. No. Generally, it will hit if you configure externally a web server. See, now forget about external web server and all those. Now think about, suppose, okay, there is a point of external web server. Then the request flow will happen. First, it will hit the web server. Then web server will send immediately the plugin. In plugin CFG.xml file, it will decide and it will send the request to the application server. Once the request come for the application server, the request will go to the web container. That's what I'm saying. Hello,
From
Ravi.
yes,
You got
yeah,
the
from
point.
web
See,
container to
there
yeah.
is a two possibilities, right? If the request is coming from the browser, if the request is coming from the browser, it will hit web container. That's it. So either the request is directly hitting the web container, or the request is happening through web server. That is a different story. But either it's come from the web server, external web server, or it hitting directly. If the request is coming from the browser-based user client, it will hit web container.
Okay, okay.
Okay, fine. Anybody has any doubts? If no, we'll move.
Sir, sir,
Yes.
this session entity and EMDB also there. So what are they? I mean,
Which one? Those are, you
this
see,
session.
that see that session EJB in EJB container, the session and entity is a big concept which we are going to discuss on clustering point of view, because the entire logical, no, in the plugin, the relation between application server and web server will happen with the plugin, that you know, right? In that plugin, we have the plugin CFG.xml file where the logical load balancing is going to be decided. and what the request will be decided by depending upon the session IDs. So those point I will discuss with you when we are discussing about clustering point. Okay. But remember, as of now, in the EJB container, there will be a sessions and entities which will be, oh, just remember one thing, Akash. The thing is, see, first the request will come for the web container. If it is static, the web in the web container, the embedded HTTP server will give the service. If it is HTML or servlets or Java beans or whatever it may be. If it is related with the dynamic content, and if it's the request is carrying with the session IDs, cookies IDs, then and clone ID, there will be a lot of things to discuss with the clustering point of view. Clone ID, session ID, and entities and all those things. If it's contain that, then the request will come to the EJB container.
Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, got
Okay,
it.
and one more thing, after coming to the EJB container also, if the request needed to interact with the database, then it will interact with the database also by using the resource.xml, which is going to be the scope of the resource where we given, whether the scope we given at the cell level or node level or server level, depending upon the level of the scope, that resource.xml file will be picked up, and the information whatever there in that, by using that, it will get into the database.
Okay, sir. So if request come from web container to EJB container, so definitely EJB container need database, or I mean,
No. If the
so
request is related with the database, then it will interact with the database.
so it's not mandatory that if request come to the EJB container, so it need database. So it is not mandatory. So EJB
Not
container.
mandatory of every request. Yeah, that's the correct.
Okay,
Not
okay,
mandatory
okay.
of every request. Fine. So now let us move for next point. The request flow of. See here, the user client is JTA client, right? I already told told you when I am explaining the components of application, components of not application server, application. What I said, the components of application is four concepts, four. I mean four modules, right? EJB module, resource adapter module, web module, and with that one more module is their client module, which is nothing but this JTE client, which will be installed in the client container. Why? Just for example, I want to tell you one live example. Suppose developers develop the online transaction application, right? So throughout the world, online transaction application is using by the ICICI Bank customers to transfer the money from one account to another account. But the persons who are sitting in the ICICI Bank office is they don't want to use the browser based user client to interact their online transaction application. So what they will say to the developers, see, we don't want to use the browser based user client, we want our own user client. In that scenario, what developer will do, in that scenario only, the fourth module, what I'm saying, the client module is there, no? This one, the client module, this one will come into the picture, and they will develop this client module also. This client module they will install in the client container. That means in the laptop or desktop of a ICICI bank system, and which will be act as a JTE client, Got the point? Okay. So now, if the user client is a JTE client, how it is going to happen? It's going to hit directly the EJB container. It's not going through web container. It will go directly to the EJB container. And what protocol they are using? RMI by IIOP, Remote Method Invocation Internet Intra ORB protocol. This is the protocol which JTE client is going to be used. And remember, this is just a flow as a subject I am saying, but 99% the user client is going to be a browser based user client only. But we have the options, three more. That's what I'm explaining now. Okay, fine. So this is about the JTA client. Now let me discuss about remaining two also, so that it will be finished. Remaining two, which is messaging client. See here, the third user client is messaging client, right? In this messaging client, in the third messaging client, this messaging client is a big concept, and we have a separate chapter called MIB. In 10 chapters we have messaging related, we have a separate chapter also, and in that it's purely related with the messages, message oriented, like queues and topics. A big concept is there. Suppose if the user client is a messaging related, we need to create a queues and topics and bus. We need to create a bus, and all those interaction is going to happen with messaging engine, which is a major component of a messaging service, messaging client. Okay, so this is inflow. This diagram is showing inflow, and inflow it will hit the EJB, and then outflow it will give them from the messaging engine. And next diagram, outflow. If the required is needed with any of the web container or EJB container or messaging engine, the outflow will be in this way, messaging receiver. That is about the messaging client. And the fourth one is web services client. If the, what do you mean by web services client? See, any web services, like see, you can create your own web services client, like by using .NET framework also you can create a web services client to interact with the web application server. That's we are going to call as a web services. APIs will be there. You can create your own client to interact. In that scenario, the request will hit the web container, and all the request, the by end it will receive by the web services engine, which is going to be a separate part available in the application server. Okay, that is inflow from the web services client. If the web services client is related with the message oriented, the request flow will be like this diagram. And if it is web services client is a outflow, the request the diagram will be in this way. And that's it. This is going to be, see, all these diagrams whichever I shown is something like how the request flow will happen. But you have to remember simply one thing: if the user client is messaging client, sorry, if the user client is a browser based client, it will hit directly web container, and embedded HTTP server will be take care. If the user client is JTE client, it will hit the
EJB
EJB
container.
container. Yeah, it will hit the EJB container. If it is a messaging client, then the messaging engine will be take care. If it is a web services client, web service engine will be taken. That information is more than enough. Okay, and now come for the main diagram. Now if you see here, main diagram, now we are clear what are the different components of this application server, and we are clear what are the different components of this application which is deployed in this application server. What are the different types of user clients we have to use this application, and what are the different types of protocols they are using. Now let us see what is web server and how this application server and web server is going to interact. See here, so this is an application server, right? Then why you need a configure web server externally? The question is, why you need to configure a web server externally to the application server? The answer for this one is, hey, as of now everybody is clear with the concepts, right? Anybody has any doubt regarding this request flow? Okay, if it is clear, now I'm
No.
yeah, now I'm getting into the web server and the difference between web server and application server. Okay, now the point is, see, what is the application server purpose? To take care of JTE application, that means .er file. Then why you need a web server? Why this web server come into the picture? When application server is there, when it is serving .er file, then why you need a external web server to configure with it? The purpose is very clear. First thing, let you know the knowledge, what is the role of web server, then why application server come into the picture. The role of web server is, see, it was 100% perfect in managing the web module, WAR files. And now, once the Java is developed and the JTE come into the picture, Java beans starts a lot of new concepts come into the picture into the Java, then application become a different modules, and it's combined, it's become a .er file. Once the ER file come into the picture, web server is not at all able to support the ER file. It can support until WAR file only. So that's the reason why application server come into the picture. Okay, that's the first thing. So once the application server is come into the picture, then you don't need the web server, right? Then why you need to configure it externally? The purpose is, what this web server will do now, if you configure externally to this application server, two things it will do. One thing is, all the request from the user client will hit, the user client is browser based, generally 95%. all the requests coming from the user client, it will hit the web server, then only it will go to the application server. So the first advantage is more security. It's not hitting directly the application server. The request flow is happening through the web server. So it was more secured with compare of not configuring the web server externally. So more secured. And next part is, if the request is, as those are mapped with together, the if the request contain two things, right? Whether it contain a static request or dynamic request. If the request is a static request, the web server itself is going to be respond. If it is a dynamic request, then only it will interact with the application server. So what is happening now? In the 10 requests, 4 requests are static, only 6 requests are dynamic, then only 6 times only the application server is needed to respond. Remaining 4 times, the web server itself is responding for those requests. So workload management, that means it's reducing the workload. So what is the advantages of configuring a externally web server with the application server? The first thing is, all request flow will happen through the web server. Those are not hitting directly application server, so it's more secure. And second thing is, if the request is contain a static, the web server itself is going to respond. If it is dynamic, then only it will interact with the application server. So it's going to be more it's going to reduce the workload on application server. That's what we are going to say as a advantages if you configure it externally web server. Okay, now the main point is how those two are going to be linked, application server and web server. To make a link between these two, we have one more software called plugin, which is going to plug between these two. Plugin, the main configuration file of plugin is plugin cfg.xml file, which is going to entire the logical load balancing, and entire the decision making is going to happen in this plugin cfg.xml file. We will see more clear clarity when we are doing the installation part. Okay, this is about web server and application server, and how this web server and application server is going to interact with each and everyone. Anybody has any doubts regarding this part?
Sir, question from my side, like if
Yes,
we
yes, go ahead.
configure HTTP, if we configure HTTP server externally,
Hmm.
basically, if the request will be static, then itself, HTTP server itself, it will serve the request, right?
Exactly,
But
exactly, yeah.
but if we deployed EAR on
Hmm.
application server,
Very good.
so
Okay. Hmm.
the content of where file
Hmm.
are on that physical server. I mean, a physical server where
You
the
mean by
VAS is running.
I got your point. See, you are saying that, see, if the request is a static, web server is mapping, web server itself is responding, it's not interacting with the application server, but the
Yes.
application is deployed in the application server, right? How this web server is using, that is your doubt, right?
Yeah. That is
Yeah,
my
yeah,
doubt.
see,
Yeah.
remember, while you are, if you observe, while you are deploying the application into the application server, there is a one point called map the modules. Whatever the modules
Yes.
in that
Yes.
ER file is going to map, right? If you observe that, or if you're able to log into your console, you checked out, all the application mapping is done with the cluster and as well as web server.
Yes.
You
I
got that point,
did
right?
that
So
mapping.
what
Yeah.
do you
Yeah. Yeah.
mean by that? What do you mean by that? See, now while you are deploying that online transaction.er file into the application server, the online transaction.er file is mapped with external web server. It is mapped with external web server. That means external web server is now able to access the online transaction.var file, which is already deployed into the application server.
Okay, but so request at least request should come into that physical box at least. I mean, where
No.
VAS is
What
installed.
happened? You said you, well, when you did the mapping, when you did the map of the module, okay, when you did the map
Okay.
of the module will be available in the web server itself. So when the request
Okay,
come
so
to the web server, see, when the request come for the web server is not at all going to be respond for that request. Immediately it will send it to the plugin. So in the plugin cfg.xml file is going to decide by seeing the URI group and virtual host and all those things. If it is a static, the request will be sent to the web server. Web server is already mapped with that module, and the module is content is there in the web server, so it will give the static request respond itself.
Okay, so you mean when we deploy the WAR file, when we deploy EAR file, if I mapped it with application server and web server, so those WAR file contents copied to web server, or
Yeah,
what I mean?
exactly.
Okay,
And
okay, okay, okay.
one more thing. I want to give you very clear in this way. See, suppose you did the online transaction.er file, you did the deployment in application server. Okay. And now you don't map that with external web server. You don't did the map the module with the web server. Then what will happen? Request won't
So,
happen through the web server, right? The request will come directly to the application server. You got the point?
yes, yes.
Yeah, that's the thing. Okay. Yeah.
So
Sir, here my question.
basically,
Yeah, Akash, can I?
yeah, go ahead,
Yes,
go ahead.
yes, Ravi.
Yeah, so the communication between web server and app server is the plugins,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So request flow comes from a web server clients to DNS to load balance to web
Okay.
server to through plugin to
Mm.
app server. If it's
Plugin and in the plugin cfg.xml file will decide whether the request has to be sent to the web server or whether the request has to be sent to the application server. If it is a static request, the plugin cfg.xml file will send that request to web server itself. If it is a dynamic, then only the request will send it to the application server.
okay. So from app server to, so if it is already stored in from app server to, we are using database. If it is already
Whatever
data is stored,
whatever it may be, depending upon the request that we discussed before itself, right? If it is related with
yeah.
again it's need, if it will interact with the EJB container. If it's need, it will interact with the database, and all those story will happen. Okay. Yeah.
Sir,
Okay, clear, right? Yeah, Akash. Yeah, tell me.
yeah, actually, as you told, when we map the application with HTTP server and application
Yes,
server,
map the
so
modules. Yeah.
yeah, so that time WAR is also deployed to HTTP server. So that is my question. Like that
No, no,
time,
no.
because
Oh,
uh, anyway, for serving the request,
yes.
HTTP server need those JSP and servlet
Ye-
files, right?
Yes. Only
So
those where will be there in the web module. Only web module will be there in the web server.
okay, so those files I can see on that physical server. I mean, if I check
Yes,
the
yes,
JSPs and
yes,
servlet.
yes,
Okay,
yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
okay, yeah, got it.
Okay, fine. So now that is about the web server and application server. Now the next part I am moving to databases. Okay, I'm moving to databases. Now there are two types of databases. Okay, in the architecture with the related with the as a VAS administrator, you are going to deal with the database, and the databases are two types. We have two types of databases. One is we are going to call it as an application database, which is 99.99% you will deal with this application database only. And there is one more database called EAS database. Okay, so what is the difference between this application database and EAS database? The application database is related which is related with the application which is deployed into this application server. But if the application which is deployed in the application server is related with the huge database like ERPs, Enterprise Resource Plans, SAP, and Oracle Labs, ERPs is there, no? If the application is related with the ERPs, then there is another database called EAS database. Okay, so we have two types of databases. One is application database, another one is EAS database. EAS database is related with the ERP applications. Application database is general. 99% will use the application database only. What are the example of application database? Oracle, DB2, SQL, SQL. All those are going in application database. EAS database is related with SAP. Okay. And now, how this application server is going to interact with the database first? You need to create a bridge. That bridge name we are going to call it as a resource. If the application server want to interact with the application database, you need to create a resource called JDBC, Java Database Connection Resource. Okay. If the database is EAS, you are going to create a resource called J2C, Java to connection, J2C connection with the EAS database. Clear? This is about the database thing. And now finally we are going to discuss about the administrative clients. Finally we are going to discuss about the administrative clients. So now what are the administrative clients? Administrative clients is nothing but the end. If it is entire VAS, it is the entire VAS application server or application deployment, whatever they mean, the entire VAS administration you will do only by using administrative clients. We have three different types of administrative clients, but majorly you will use only two. One is browser based console, the console which you are using to administrate, it is a administrative clients. It is a administrative clients which is used to administrate the application. And one more administrative clients you have WS admin commands, which is a script based and which is a non-GUI. Browser based and GUI interaction is a console one administrative client. Another one is non-GUI and command based. That one is WS admin commands. Those two are going to be the user clients which we are going to use. Sorry, administrative clients which we are going to use to do the administration. It's very simple here. If entire food is ready, you are eating with the spoon. So the food, entire ready food is nothing but VAS administration, and you are eating with the spoon, right? That spoon is nothing but administrative clients, which is nothing but browser based console and WS admin commands. Okay, this is about the administrative clients. Here remember, almost we are done with the architecture theoretical discussion. Here, as a client's points of view, you see two types of clients. One is user clients. What do you mean by user clients? The user clients, we have four types of user clients. By using only these user clients, we can interact with the application which is deployed in the application server. And we have one more client, that is administration clients. What are those administrative clients? Only by using these administrative clients we can administrate the VAS. Okay, and now if you observe web point of view, you see a lot of things. See, web browser, web server, web services, Websphere, right? Those four different. What is web browser? It is a user client. What is web server? It is a subset of application server. What is Websphere? You are administrating. What is a web services client? It is a one more user client. Don't get confused with the web names, okay? Who are freshers, who are new for this Websphere point of view, okay? So this is overview of architecture. I hope I am done. So what you people are clear now in architecture? See, the entire VAS administration I divided as a 10 chapters. The first chapter is architecture, that is done now, and once that means 10% of VAS is done. So now in this finishing of this architecture, now you are very clear what are the major components of application server. Then you are very clear what are the major components of application which is deployed into that application server. Once this application is deployed into this application server, we have four different types of user clients. What are they? Web browser based user client, JTA client, messaging client, and web services client. What protocols they are using? HTTPS, RMA by IOP, JMS, and SOAP. And what are the different types of database we have? Application database and EIS database. What are the resource that you are going to create with them? If it is an application database, you are going to create a resource called JDBC. If it is a EIS database, you are going to create a resource called J2C. And what is a web server? And how this web server and application server is going to interact by using a plugin software, and the main configuration file is plugin cfg.xml file. And what are the advantages, and what will be the advantage if you configure the external web server, that you know. And finally, what are the administrative clients? By using these administrative clients only, you will do the administration of VAS. Clear? Yep. So this part is architecture part is done from my side. Anybody has any doubts regarding our first chapter architecture? It's a pure theoretical discussion. It's done now actually. Okay. When we get into the third chapter installation, I will come again back to this architecture and I will show you practically how it's going to be things, components of this one, or components of application and components of application server and everything. Yes, I'm done. So anybody has any doubts, please?
Sir, one question from my side. So
Please.
these days I am hearing about the microservices.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier it was like monolithic application, complete application is there. So these days microservices or whatever what developers do, I mean, they will just come with one or two
Microservice is
features.
also one of the user client of web services, Akash.
Yes, I see with
Yeah.
this. So,
Yeah.
my question is, suppose like my client is Google and developers suppose come with if we browse Google URL, so what we will
Uh-huh.
see the only search engine page, and
Uh-huh.
in the right corner we can see couple of applications like Google Drive, Gmail. So if we
Okay.
click on that couple of applications, it will show. So
Okay.
suppose like developers only come with two or three features and they want to
Okay.
implement it in VAS. So
Okay.
how it will come? So what they will do? I mean, so they will create different WAR files or what? How? I mean, they will
No.
implement
If
or
the
how they?
see, no. If the application is a .NET application, you're talking about .NET application.
No, not
See,
.NET.
here
I'm talking about Java only.
it should be Java application, because then only Websphere will support. Then what they will do is they will create a user client. The user client is browser. That's what I said. In the user client we have four. In that web services client, it is a user client, right? They, by using their .NET framework, they will create one web services client, which is going to interact with the Java application, which is deployed in the application server.
Okay.
So web services will come into the picture in that scenario. What you said.
No, actually, I mean, such a kind of applications where we can deploy. It's a WebSphere application server or it's a WebSphere portal server. I mean, a couple of applications we can see on the same page. That's why I'm asking.
See here. See, not only portal. If it is a portlet application, suppose, see, yeah. Then for your question, it should be a portal server administration. It's not a VAS actually. VAS is linked with
Okay,
portal,
okay,
because why, see, if the application is a normal ER file, VAS will be come into the picture, Akash. If the application is related with the message orientation, okay, then MQ and MB will come into the picture. If the application is a portlet application, like what you said, Google, suppose you take the Google frame, if you click on Gmail, separately Gmail will open, right? One more application. If you click on YouTube, separate YouTube will open, another application. If you click on something else, three different types of application will open, but all three together is portleted as a single application, google.com. That is, such a application, such a Java application will be taken care by portal server, not VAS. Websphere only,
okay,
but Websphere application, not a Websphere application server. It's going to be Websphere portal server administration. If the application is a, if application is like, e-commerce application, like how you are seeing the e-commerce things, then the from WebSphere point of, there is a WebSphere e-commerce server administration.
okay. So my question is like in the Google, we say Google have couple of
In that
applications like
scenario,
Gmail, YouTube,
definitely,
Google Drive.
in your scenario, definitely it's needed to deploy into portal server only. It has to be interact with the portal server, not application server.
Okay, then if I use the SDFC side, there are also a couple of, I mean, we can see couple of features like it's a transaction field, one card is field, balance check is a field. So these
Okay.
are the multiple applications or this is the only one application?
No,
I
no,
mean,
I'm not getting you. Come again, Akash.
I think
so
Akash need
if I browse the SDFC site, so there
Uh,
also we can see couple of different features like balance check option, then uh, transaction option. So couple of
uh-huh.
applications, contact us application. So
Those are
these
good.
are different applications or this come under only one year. So I mean,
No. What happened there? No, those are going to be portleted as a single application. Those are different applications, but all the portlet is framed in one single application only.
Okay, so this will be come under WebSphere, right? I mean, or
Websphere
it is
portal server. Yeah, it will come under
okay,
Websphere
WebSphere.
portal server. Yeah.
Okay, then basically, what kind of websites are deployed in WebSphere and what kind of sites are deployed in portal server? I mean, I'm confused with portal server and WebSphere.
See,
So even I,
normal. See. Here, uh, just in a single word, if you want the answer, if www.icicibank.com is an application which is deployed in the application server for sure. Okay. www.google.com is the application which is deployed in the portal server. Why? The icicibank.com is a simple JT application which is a icicibank.er file, which is a simple application which can deploy into the WAS WebSphere application server. Google.com is a JT application, but it is a portlet of a different combination applications, which is like YouTube and Gmail and all those things. Portlet of that such application you need for sure to deploy it into portal server administration. Suppose
oh,
if the application, if it is a Java application which is a pure related with the message oriented, something like, see, you are withdrawing the money from the ATM, you are immediately getting the message, right, how much you withdraw and everything. So this is a message oriented application of a ICICI bank. That application must and should has to deploy into MQ and MB server administration, WebSphere MQ server, messaging queue and messaging broker servers.
okay. So only at even if we look the website, so we can, I mean,
And moreover,
we can come to know, right?
remember,
It will.
and one more thing you have to remember, Akash. See, every MQ server or every WebSphere portal server or process server or e-commerce server, everything again it has to come and interact with the WAS server, WebSphere application server. Why? The application, some content will be there in the WAS itself.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes,
Because
you got
the
the
core
point now.
application, I
Yeah,
mean,
the core,
yeah, yeah,
core will be
core.
there. Yeah, core will be there in the VAS itself. And if the application is related message oriented, then it will be completely interact with the MQ. If it is a portlet application, it will interact with the portal server. But obviously, whether it is a portal server or a MQ server or process server or e-commerce server, all those again has to come and interact with your VAS server, VAS administration. Yeah.
So is it possible like developer can develop multiple WAR files for this YouTube, Gmail, Google Drive, and they can
Yeah,
integrate
yeah,
those file and we can
yeah,
deploy it in
yeah,
VAS
yeah, yeah,
only?
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but
That
it
is a
will be
that is
difficult,
different
I mean.
story of
So,
related with the development point of view, Akash. Yeah.
okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay, got it.
Okay, fine. Yeah. Anybody else? Anybody else? Any doubts regarding up to now? Done, right?
Sir, I have. Yes, one second, sir. May I know the
Yeah.
difference between portlet application and WebSphere application, sir? Like you said, no, in WebSphere is only belongs to a particular application like ICICI or something like that, like any
On.
security
Yes,
things.
yes.
If,
Yes, yes.
if portals means, if
Mm.
portal means
It's a
like
portlet
if
application.
you
It's
go
a
to
combination of it's a simple example I
multiple
said.
applications.
Google is the best example for portal server. Google.com. If you open Google.com, how you will see? You will see in the
Yeah,
same
you can
portlet,
see
see
many things.
uh,
Yeah.
many things, right? If you go for Google and you will see a lot of things, right? I mean, see here it is a Google, the YouTube, web store, and you can add some more applications. This is a portlet of application, combination of different applications. If you go for exclusively YouTube, then it is a single application. That's it. Okay.
Okay. The only difference is in Portlet we can handle multiple applications. In WebSphere,
Yes,
particularly we
yes,
can
yes.
handle a particular
That's it.
application.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. Yeah.
So I
So
do have one.
that's yeah. Please
Hello.
go ahead.
This may sound
Yes,
silly,
yes.
but Google is give serve static or dynamic request.
Yes. It will give the both, right?
Okay, so in that case, how the like WebSphere application server will react and how request will go? Like first it will go to the web server and then to the application server. Means any application should can show both the properties, right?
Any application can yeah, yes, in any application can have both static and as well as dynamic. Yeah,
Okay.
in every application, any application and every application generally, it may have both static and as well as dynamic. If it is static, only the web server will take care. If it is dynamic, then application server will take care. The request flow will be, we already discussed now, in the same way it will go.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sir, I have
Anybody
one
else?
question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Regarding there are WebSphere portal servers are also there. So in case of administration, the WebSphere application server and portal servers, how they differ?
You're talking about
Uh,
administration point of view.
yes, yes.
See, when it's come for the administration point of view, each and every has its own interaction of console, how we already discussed in the architecture, administrative clients, and portal has its own
Yes.
administrative client, and VAS has its own administrative client. But the thing is, when the application is a portlet application, where you will deploy into the portal server. Okay, and if
Yeah.
that application core, the core is linked with some other application, just imagine it is linked with some file which is deployed in the VAS,
Okay. Okay.
which the application is already deployed into the WebSphere application server. So in that scenario, then web server will WebSphere portal server will come and interact with the application server.
Okay.
Yeah. No, you are asking about how the interaction is going to happen.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that I will explain you when we did the installation. In the installation, in the console itself, I will show you each and everything, how those external MQ process or portal, all those servers is going to interact with the VAS.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Now that part I will explain you when the installation is done, and I will show you how those are that all those are going to be the flavors of WebSphere here. The base of the home is VAS, WebSphere application server. Upon that, the layers is MQ, MB, and process server, portal server, e-commerce server, all those. So how all those flavors can interact with the base? There is a process in the console. I will explain you when we did the installation. Okay.
Okay, and one more question, like regarding applications,
Mhm.
which applications we install it on the application server, and
Mm.
which applications install it on the portal servers? Is there any
Mm.
criteria for it?
Yeah, that's what I said. You see, which application we will install in the application server means the application which is a normal JTE application, which is a .er file. If the
Okay,
application is a message oriented JTE application, then we will deploy it into the
okay,
MQ
okay,
server.
got it.
If
Yeah,
the application is a portlet related JTE application, then we'll deploy it to the portal server. You got it right?
okay,
Yeah.
got it. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. So anybody else? Well, then I think everybody is cleared, and now the first part of architecture is done, which is a 10% of VAS is done. And tomorrow I will start the second chapter, topology and terminology. Very, very, very interesting. And I hope this is my second class in this online training. So yesterday, to be frank, I want to say honestly, I'm not at all comfortable yesterday. I hope you people understand, but not bad, I think. So I'm sure from day by day it will be more, because what happened for me as of now, I'm very much comfortable with this online training. I mean classroom training. So as I'm
Yes,
dealing with
that is
online,
offline classes.
yes. So this is online training is the first time, right? So it was a little bit to adjust my mindset. It's taking a little bit time. Hope I covered everything in proper way. If anything is lacking, let me know. I will make it rectify for next classes. Okay. So I already recorded this one, and I will share this recorded video, whatever I discussed this architecture. No, I will share this with all. I will share to all your mail IDs. Okay. Fine. So I'm done with, from my side. Okay. So take care. Then we'll see tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock, the next batch. I mean, next class.